Your life, your rules. Unlocked with Huawei Mate 7's advanced fingerprint security on a 6-inch display. Huawei Mate 7. Huawei.
So here in the studio to talk to us about the new drone legislation in South Africa, which is very important, is Chris Clark, who's the CEO of Rocketmine. Have I got this right about drones? Have drones become that sophisticated, Chris?
Aki, it really has transitioned from being just a toy now to becoming this sort of commercial application. The hardware and the software has got to the point where no longer is it just about taking it out and putting it in a box, but it's about how do we deliver this incredible value now to industry across the country.
And who is Rocketmine?
So Rocketmine is a newly launched UAV service provider. So we've taken the approach of combining the hardware and the software and going after big customers like the mining and the agricultural sectors to help them run their businesses better.
And how would you use your drone technology on a mine, for example?
Well, let's take, for instance, traditional mining methods. Let's take a coal mine, for instance, right? You've got a really big stockpile. You've got to measure the stockpile. What's the volume? You look at the Lackey survey over there. You said, listen, take this GPS. I want you to walk over this sort of high quality coal, and I want you to measure it for me. Next thing, as he's walking up this sort of coal face, that high quality coal burns in the sun. It creates a big safety risk for surveyors.
Okay.
So now using drones, the guys can sit back at the office, they can fly them, and we can start measuring coal stockpiles, right? And we can calculate volumes. We can even provide 3D point clouds around it. Another really cool factor of drones, let's say in the agriculture sense, is what they call precision ag. So generally farmers come along and they just spray water and fertilizer wherever they think is necessary.
Right.
But with drones, you're able to fly over your farm and actually do what they call an NDVI, or vegetation index, over your farm and say, guys, we do not need to put fertilizer over the whole farm, only over these particular stressed areas. And you get the results within the same day.
Here's a question for you. Is it possible to do that same thing, the vegetation index, over Toby Shapshak's head?
It could
Can
be
it
possible.
be done? Okay.
It might be a little bit tough because of the reflectance, but
there's a high vegetation area.
Yes.
Anyway, listen, back to serious business. So this legislation that's come, this is where you fit in, because you guys have been working really closely with the civil aviation authorities to make this new legislation, which is critical. And I think that as a country, we're quite forward thinking by creating this legislation. Now, tell us about this legislation. How stringent is it? A lot of people have been saying, wow, it's 150,000 Rand you have to operate a drone today. What is the legislation all about?
Yeah, Aki, I've really got to commend the Civil Aviation Authority and the Department of Transport, and like you say, being so forward thinking. And why this legislation is so significant is that there's less than 10 countries in the whole world that actually have this kind of legislation. Yes, it is over-regulated, but at least we have a sort of an answer to go that we can now sort of kick off. And it makes South Africa a lot more competitive, comparing with a lot of other countries that don't have this, enabling us to use this technology. It lowers the overall cost of the business. Now, a lot of people have got this argument saying it's over-regulated, we can't fly 50 meters within people and national key points, but we take off the opinion that we'd rather have governments sort of start off with over-regulation, as long as there is regulation, and over time, as the technology gets better and safer and people learn to trust that technology, then they deregulate piece by piece.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So take myself, for example. If I have a Parrot AR drone, for example, do I need to get a special license to fly it now, or can anybody fly it? Who does this legislation apply to?
So legislation only applies to what we call commercial operations. So with you flying your Parrot and your AR drone in your back garden, will not need to apply for a license. As soon as you want to start making money out of this is when you go into the sort of the commercial realm. That's when the legislation will apply to you. It is about the same as almost applying for a normal aviation license as if I'm going to start up a new Kalula. It's the same kind of level of documentation, safety, risk mitigation that you need to apply in your thinking.
So, I mean, I look at some of the Chinese markets. In China, for example, they were delivering stuff across Beijing, for example. If you ordered stuff online, Amazon is experimenting with doing similar deliveries. Are we going to see something like that happening in South Africa, that you would order stuff and it would be delivered to you via drone? Are we far from that? Am I talking a bit far too much into the future?
So short answer is no. So the current legislation prohibits delivery of sort of articles.
Yeah.
You can kind of imagine maybe Oscar Pistorius might have a delivery, drop dropped off in package and all the other guys across across Baltimore prison's walls.
Yeah.
So that's all prohibited in any kind of form. But the software where we're seeing the technology. So the one downfall, apologies, Aki, is the one downfall of drones is where you see they can't detect one another. There's no kind of those software as in conventional aircraft, which has transponders.
Like radars.
Correct,
and everything.
right?
Okay.
So drones don't have that technology. So that's why it relies on your line of sight. Now what you're going to find is that the technology will get to the point, very similar to self-driving cars, where drones will soon be able to detect one another in the sky, fly straight past one another. That we're not far from that.
Other, yeah.
We're not far from that. And I think once the technology proves itself, the legislation will then follow.
Well, last question for you. Do the radars at an airport like OR Tambo, do they pick up a drone coming across the runway?
No. So now the drones, that's exactly what we're referring to is right now. So drones don't have transponders built into them.
Okay.
You won't be allowed to fly within 10 kilometers of any kind of aerodrome. So the idea really is on your pilot having this visual line of sight to make sure you keep your eye on your drone.
What happens if you do that and you get caught? If you fly in a restricted area, you get caught. What's the fine?
You're looking between 50,000 Rand or 10 years in jail.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. Interesting stuff.